I just got to get beyond this headache, and I think I'll be okay. But we'll give it a shot.
Mr. Man has a headache today, so.
Oh, yeah. You're going to record that, aren't you?
Probably. I don't know.
Some things in life are always going to be a headache.
Sometimes we have headaches. Good morning. Hey, hello, everybody. I know it's not morning for you anymore. It's probably mid-afternoon to early evening. But this is The Wrap. My name is Darren. I'm one of the pastors here at Connection Point Church. And with me today is Kevin Mann, executive pastor.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you.
And he spoke this weekend covering Pastor Chris, who's been on vacation with his family.
Yeah.
And well-needed vacation. Everybody needs a vacation. You need a vacation.
We all need one.
I need a vacation. We all need a vacation. Everybody needs a vacation sometimes.
That's right.
Because if you're not rested, you will not be what? Excellent.
In anything that you do.
Look at what I did right there. This weekend, as you know, The Wrap is what we do is we recap a little bit of the past weekend or yesterday's message. This weekend, this past weekend, we continued on with our series, Our Code. And if you don't know what our code is, it's a list or a group or I don't know what you call
beliefs.
It's just our core beliefs. These core values that we just hold on to as far as a team, as a church, and they kind of direct us a little bit on how we approach, for lack of a better word, ministry, and so how we serve our do the work of the kingdom of God. And this week it was excellence matters, and it's an interesting one. Like I told him, told you actually, the week or two before you preached it. It's like, that's an interesting one to preach. You know what I mean? Excellence matters to me when I think of it. It's more of when I think of it as corporately. So as a church, how we function makes perfect sense. But to just look at it from a biblical perspective, you kind of had to unfold it and kind of read between the lines a little bit, and just look at the nature, I guess, or the character of God, and in that, see how He has this idea or expectation of excellence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I struggled with that early on in my part of my faith because I thought I had to know everything all up front when I gave my life to Christ, everything scripturally, and I wouldn't say a word until I felt like I was comfortable. And God reminded me, Pastor Darren, that excellence is not being perfect all up front. It's taking the opportunity to excel every step you take in life. And as long as you continue to excel and as long as you keep taking steps forward and not worrying about what's looking behind you, God, I believe, takes a look at that as excellence, just as Peter describes in 2 Peter 1:3-11 that we talked about yesterday, and how to add on to your faith. Instead of just being stuck at, okay, I gave my life to Christ, and you're thinking it's all done, when in fact, to pursue excellence, it takes more than that. It takes walking with Christ, developing a relationship with Him, and having a conversation with Him day in and day out. And Peter said it best when he said, you have to supplement where your founding of faith was at the very beginning. And the supplement means so many things to so many people.
So whenever I know for our department, I oversee the media, communications department and outreach, but for this purpose, we're looking at the media aspect of it. Zach, if you guys don't know Zach, we're here at Connection Point Church. He is our production leader. And so he's basically over the Sunday morning experience as far as how the technical side of it all goes. And so his mantra, his saying he loves to say is excellence matters. So sometimes, you get real busy, and I think this applies spiritually. Sometimes you get really, really busy, you'll cut a corner or two, and you'll say, how important is this really? And then there's always Zach to remind me. Excellence matters, Pastor Darren. It's like trying to convict me or something. I don't know.
But I think we all struggle with that here on staff, because when we make a mistake, sometimes we're so hard on ourselves.
Yep.
And we can't think of everything all at once. And I know God knows that's one of the human natures of us, is our mind can only comprehend and exercise so much. But I believe God looks at what we do when we really try our best at the moment. And if we mess up, so be it. As long as we realize that we fell short, we know what to do with it. As long as we don't beat ourselves up over the mistakes that we think we made. I'm not talking about sins in general. I'm talking about just overall mistakes to do ministry better.
Yeah, no, there's no perfection.
That's right.
And I know you hammer that point really hard Sunday. I know, but we do this, and that is we do our absolute best. You know, we do what we can. Well, yeah, exactly. And you're already going to make mistakes, and usually, to be honest with you, you're doing the best you can. If you're trying in attempts to do things well in order to be representative of God, you know, because God does everything in it. He is excellent because He's perfect. We fail in excellence because we're imperfect, but in our striving to do things with excellence, really to show people that it matters, you know, that we put a lot of emphasis on what we do. We want to make sure the place looks a certain way. We want to make sure whenever the sound levels are a certain quality, the visuals are a certain quality, the printouts are a certain quality, how we speak is a certain quality, how we present ourselves is a certain quality, how all those things are a certain quality. Those things are concerning to us because we want to represent who Christ is. But at the same time, like you said, perfection is impossible. So it is exactly what you just said, doing the best absolutely best within your gift set. So
in the time that you have available.
Yep. And it varies. We all know it varies. Time and money.
Absolutely.
It's always those two things in life. Isn't it true with everybody?
It is.
But, and so if you had to, I know whenever we do these messages, we went to 3 services. One of the things that the reason we do this particular show, for lack of a better word, or video, is to kind of fill in some of the voids, because this was Kevin's first experience at trying to preach or teach on a 25-minute schedule for us going to 3 services, because as y'all can tell, you guys, again, the Lord has been really kind, and this summer, man, we haven't had that. If you don't know this, if you never really worked around churches experience drop-offs, pretty steep drop-offs in the summertime.
Absolutely.
It's a known thing.
Absolutely. Across
the world. It's nothing like, it's not a connection point church thing. It's just it's a really typical thing. And some churches experience up to a 50% decline in the summertime because people go on vacations, as you should, and they do their family things, as you should. But everybody does it at the same time. And so man, we haven't really experienced it this year.
No, we haven't. And we can say that actually for the last several years.
Yeah.
I think people are so hungry, especially coming out of COVID. There were so many questions, and there's that ugly word again, right? Yeah. So people had so many questions. What do I do now with my life, and where do I go? How do I excel? And I believe we're seeing a hunger that we haven't seen or heard of in so many other towns and cities where church was one time a thriving part of their culture and community. And
the reason I bring it up is because when we went to 3 worship experiences, because of our growth, and we're still trying. We was hoping to really grow 3rd service, and by the way, it has really grown.
Yes.
And
thank you all for participating.
And so,
in that.
But what it did is though it shortened our worship experience time just a bit, and so to accommodate that, we looked at it as a staff and took some and just kind of. We trimmed the fat, and once we did that, it's like one of the part of it that went was about 8 to 10 minutes on our messages, and so what that meant for us who prepare for messages is there was always going to be those little bonus babies that we always throw out there that we don't get to share. And I know during your studies, this was one of the reasons why we do the wrap. So whenever Pastor Chris is here, there's some things he didn't get to talk about on that Sunday morning.
And you wish you would have.
And you wish you would have. So if there's any of those things that you can think of off the top of your head that you maybe didn't get to get out while you were preparing.
It's almost, I tell you what, after yesterday, I went home and I thought about it, and we critique ourselves.
Of course.
Worse than
there's
anybody
that excellence
else,
thing. Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
that's that excellence thing. You're trying to be perfect. I wondered if I crammed too much to try to get everything in, which can actually take away from the heart of the message. And that's what I struggled with all yesterday afternoon. Did I put in too much? And so as the services went along, I think I may have subconsciously, which then came out, I added the things that I did not add to. So in the first go around, in the first service, but nevertheless, Pastor Darren, when you talk about shortening the services because we went to 3 services, the first thing in my mind was, okay, what are we taking away that people need to know that God wants them to know. And that was the first thing in my mind. And I think when you steadily pray before a message delivered, or when Pastor Kyle and his gang comes up and leads us in worship, the first thing in your mind is we don't want to shortcut God, but how do we take the time element? And here's what I think God's speaking to us in when we shorten the 3 services. If we're making more room for people to come to hear the gospel that's never heard the gospel of Jesus Christ ever before in their life, which happens almost every Sunday, and you know that, every Sunday, whatever we got to do to expand that, and meaning to go to 3 services, even if we have to shorten it, as long as we believe the gospel is told and presented, I don't think we can ever go wrong.
And also, it harkens back to the part of our code, excellence matters. The cool thing about once we started trimming away a little bit, it's like, so it focused. So we all believe this, I think, as a staff for sure. I know I do. Sometimes whenever you spread yourself out too thin, so if you're diving into, if you do too many projects, or in our case, if you have too many events, or if we have too many things, excellence. Guess what? Your excellence level goes down.
It does.
And so if you can refine that to do the things that you know that you have, that the Lord has put in you, and then you can do those things with excellence, because you're not spread out so far, you're not stressed out, and you're not trying to do things that you're not naturally able to do. And so I think it's really, to me, on some level, whenever it kind of surprisingly, because we were all really worried about shortening the worship experience. It really worried us. And in fact, that was our number one concern. And but it seems like maybe it's helped us prepare, because what that did is that kicked into overdrive message prep, how we do message prep, how we look at the worship experiences. Like, we try to highlight. So we sit with I'm pointing at somebody over there. It's Tyke. He's our associate worship pastor, and so we work with Tyke and Kyle and Kayla and those guys, and look at the moments we have that could happen in a worship experience, those moments that could be key. And we try to really, really, really intentionally try to do everything well. And so we pick just the right songs for just the right moment, or at least we hope we do. We prayerfully, hopefully we do. And then what it does with our messages is it changes how we just don't have time for junk. And so there is no access. So anything that's getting put out there right now is, we hope, and our prayer is, it's excellent, and that honors God. And
yesterday I talked about how we measure where we've been and where we're going, right? Yep. And how we measure excellence. And case in point, I found out after the 3rd service yesterday that there were some really deep needs, whether it was based on the worship song that they heard that really got to their heart, or it was the heart of the message. I think there was a combination of both. At one time, I was told the prayer rooms were completely full. For whatever reason, all we know, that is a measurement to know whether we go to 3 services on a Sunday morning or 4, there is a measurement that people's needs are being met.
He's at 4.
Yeah, okay. I take the 4 back. Staff, if you're looking, 4. Okay.
Third service, you guys make us go to 4.
That's right.
If you make us go to 4, by goodness, we'll be at 4.
That's right. God's doing an excellent thing here, Pastor Darren. He's doing an excellent
thing. We'll do 4.
Even despite our inadequacies.
Well, it has to be. But so if you, as you looked at as you were ending your message, and if you had to take everything that you said there at the end, making you work Sunday again. If you look at how you ended there, and how would you like to wrap all that up in order to, like, once again, kind of put a nice little bow on it?
Yeah. As a reminder, Peter challenged the believers, his brothers and sisters as Christ, as he described them, that if you do these things, you do these things, you will have a grand entry into heaven. And that is a challenge to all of us. That needs to go beyond, hey, I gave my life to Christ, that's it, there's nothing more. Peter challenged us. Yes, he challenged me as I was studying this, because that means we never give up on our faith, and we're to grow our faith consistently. And so that's my challenge. That's all of our challenge here at Connection Point Church. Never stop growing your faith. God is not a one-stop shop on salvation. He wants you to continue to grow.
We got a few minutes, so I'm going to ask something. Totally going to catch him off the cuff. real quick, if you could do it in like 5 or so minutes, maybe 8.
Oh, wow. I'm going to preach again?
Yeah. No. For those who don't know your testimony, because it's always kind of cool to me whenever I hear about where you come from, specifically from your parents and everything. Yeah. And so if you could briefly kind of to roll that out there for those who haven't heard that whole thing, because it's really good. It's always been really powerful whenever, because I know you mention it, but I know you don't always go into it from the platform. So people may not know the totality of what you came out of and how difficult, and it's really, to be honest with you, how difficult it was for you personally to overcome it, but the Lord did a work.
Yeah, I was asked that yesterday in the courtyard, is what is your testimony? You know, and it's hard to do a testimony, Pastor Darren, as you know, without filtering in so many details that help the person make sense of what you're saying.
Yep.
You know, being born to deaf parents in a community that was a hardworking community, north suburb of St. Louis, which eventually turned into a very rough neighborhood to grow up in. You've experienced that in Memphis. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about. And so being born to deaf parents, people were just mean back then. And so they took advantage of that. Had a hard time with teachers basically telling me I would never succeed at anything. To be, and if I can say it like this, to be violated one time outside of the home. That's a touchy subject, but it's true. To be able to go back, and after you experience those rough roads of being accused of not having smarts, and because you have deaf parents and teachers telling you you're not going to amount to much, to being violated, to going into, okay, you know what, enough stuff has happened to me. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take everything back that was taken from me, and I did it in the wrong ways. I didn't know Christ. I was in a lot of fights. I took advantage of people's emotions. I helped crush people's lives emotionally, and I hate to say that. But let me tell you something. When God got a hold of me, and I know I'm leaving a lot out, when God got a hold of me, I remember when I gave my life to Christ, and basically I heard, if I want to say verbatim, not really audibly, but that feeling, you know, that feeling that you get, that Holy Spirit's there and said, you're no longer a victim. Mm. And that's what I try to tell. It doesn't matter the experiences in life. God reminded me I'm not a victim, I'm his child. And if I'm his child, then I no longer can claim anything in the past. Even though our past makes us who we are today, it should not own you as to who you are today. It should be the ownership of Jesus Christ in that relationship. But I experienced playing in very popular groups and bands.
He was a drummer, for those who don't know.
I was a drummer. Still like to do it. But thank God
every
for
once
young
in a while,
people.
every once in a while we'll be hanging out. Zach and I will be, and Tyke and I. By the way, media team here late a lot. So, and sometimes he is too. And so how we know that is because we'll hear something in the worship center, and it's like somebody going to town on the drum set, and it is Pastor Kevin.
Yeah.
And so that's how I think he releases a little bit of tension.
It is. Some people exercise their hearts out. Well, I just beat the daylights out of those drums, you know. But you know, I when my career as that came to an end, so to speak, that's when God got a hold of me and my wife Marcy within 6 months of each other, and said, "I've got something better for you." And so I still struggle with validation, Pastor Darren. I still struggle with it, but I don't let it own me, and that's the difference. That's the difference. And who to know? I'm now an executive pastor at Connection Point Church, and my friends in St. Louis said, I still don't believe it. I still can't believe it. And I said, well, come on down and let's go out for lunch and let's talk about it. And we have a time or two.
Now, people don't understand, like, 'cause our learning is based a lot on hearing. And if your parents can't talk to you during those very formative years, they can talk to you, but you know what I mean. They're deaf, so their communication skills are limited,
which affected my communication.
100% it did. And so then you had teachers trying to basically tell you that you were going to be this way to have a chance to get past that.
Happened.
And for a lot of people think of victim a victim mentality is somebody who just like continually stays a victim. But you took the opposite route. You became angry and
Yes.
and lashed out.
Yes.
And so that's what created most
proving
of
myself for all the wrong reasons.
Exactly. But either way, it's an amazing story. If you ever get a chance to hear the whole thing, it's really good.
I'll meet with you.
Just ask him; he'll gladly tell you. And but
And
anyway,
so would you.
and so will I. And so no, anyways. So as we always do here, thanks for sharing that. By the way.
Oh no.
As I always conclude the rap, I always say we're going to wrap the rap, and it's a very cheesy, terrible way to say it, but it's the only way I know to say it. So until next time, we'll see you probably in a week.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll see, Lord willing.
Have
see
a
you
great
next week. Bye.
Bye.